What is going on, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another episode of the Kingdom Says. I am your host, as always, Garrett Williams. Tonight, I am joined by two lovely gentlemen. At the top right of the screen, we've got Mr. Arrowhead Tom. How you doing tonight, Tom?
I feel like that's the first normal. We've had a couple of different starts. I know our last live was a little, yeah, that just feels good. Everything feels right in the world right now.
I'm glad we've restored
At
a little
least
bit of
for the
sense of
podcast,
normalcy.
maybe not on all of Chiefs Kingdom, but
Right, yeah. No, you're right about that. Also joining us, Randy Allenberger. How we doing tonight, Randy?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Good to be back with you fellas. It's been a little bit, but now that my football season unfortunately is over, I have more time available to hang out with you fun-loving criminals. So,
Hey, it was a great season though. It was a great season for the Lakers. I tell you what, y'all did great. Y'all did great. But hey,
it was a good run. Ended a little too soon, but
yeah,
we did some good things. So it was a fun season.
yeah. Now we just get to talk about the Chiefs. Very fun season that we're having so far. Yeah, it's been an up and down ride this year. I'd say overall the season has been a lot more fun than last year. I would say, but obviously when you're losing games this late into the season versus a very familiar rival in the Buffalo Bills, and kind of showing up and showing the same crappy performance that we've had a lot of the year throughout different times. Yeah, it's just a little disheartening. So we'll get to it. We're gonna rip the Band-Aid off, if you will, of what went wrong with this Chiefs-Bills matchup. As we know, obviously, two teams that play each other twice a year, pretty much every single year. They're basically a division rival. And every year, the Bills get us in the regular season. It's just that's just how it is. They always win the one that doesn't necessarily matter as much, although this year it might matter a little bit more for the Chiefs, considering the win-loss record is a little shaky. But yeah, very familiar teams who you can't really just run out the same old game plan that you run against the Commanders or the Raiders when you play the Bills, because they are very familiar with that, and they've seen every shot that the Chiefs have had, and some good, some not so good. So yeah, that's kind of how it goes when you show up and don't play to your best. As we've mentioned multiple times this year, has been a lot of C minus, D plus, D performances, some even F performances, you might say. Not a lot of A's or B's on the Chiefs report card, you might say. So yeah, overall thoughts, Tom, initially from the game. What were your kind of? I know you and Kyle last week had decent expectations going into it.
yeah, I said this in the group chat during the game. I think Kyle and I have to take sole responsibility for this loss because every Bills player we talked crap on defense looked like a superstar. I specifically remember, Kyle naming Cole Bishop and saying, "Well, I'm not worried about Cole Bishop," and I said something like, "Well, don't do my guy like that. He was a good Utah player, and he looked like Ed Reed out there." And we were talking about the corners, and I specifically mentioned oh yeah, Maxwell Hairston, their first round pick, who hasn't really done much, and he gets his first pick off Mahomes. So if you want to be mad at somebody, Chiefs Kingdom, you can be mad at me and Kyle for jinxing the whole dang thing. I've sworn to never speak ill of another opposing player ever again as a result. So it was a weird, it was like a C minus performance from the Chiefs. I know that it feels like they lost, and that's what matters, and whatever. I mean, they still, it was a close game. They didn't get destroyed. Honestly, it was a closer game than the game last year, right? Where it just felt like they couldn't stop anything. I also said it in the episode last week was they have to be able to stop the run. And the Bills came in dedicated to running the football. And that is what kept their offense rolling the whole game. I know we'll talk probably more in a little bit about the trade deadline stuff, but our defensive line, which I've been harping on, there are good players on that, but that is not a complete rotation. We are very thin at defensive tackle. We're not getting as much productivity out of our edges as we need to when it comes to setting the edge, and it's not working for me. At least not against a team like Buffalo. Now, is it going to beat up a team like the Raiders? Sure. But I'm and Randy, I know you were frustrated with Chris Jones, and rightfully so. At the same time, if you look at his snap counts, he's about 30 snaps higher than any other defensive tackle in the league. He's playing, pretty much the entire game, and that's awesome. He's done that pretty much his whole career, but especially, I mean, as a player, it's interesting when you look at how they've used Travis Kelce as he's aged, and that yet they refuse to give any type of relief to Chris Jones. Do I want to take Chris Jones off the field? No. But do I want him to have to be the entire defensive line every game? Also, no. Um, it stings that Omar Norman Lott isn't here to step up and do some things, but you needed bodies even outside that. So I think down the stretch, my biggest concern is that lack of defensive tackle depth. Obviously, they brought back Mike Pennell. Mike Pennell is also pretty old. He is good at what he does, but he's a role player. He's a rotational player, right? He's not somebody you want to have out there for 85% of the snaps like you have Chris Jones out there. We've had enough conversations about what Derek Nottie is. When you really come down to it, I think my biggest takeaway from this game is if a team is able to commit to the run like the Bills did and not panic like a lot of teams do when they get down to the Chiefs, they have a shot with them because against Kansas City, because that's right now, that to me is their biggest weakness, is that lack of defensive line depth. You don't have a good rotation to keep guys fresh, and like they were just gassed down the stretch the second half of that game. I mean, I was watching guys, hands on their knees and that type of thing. They were gassed. So not to tee off on one big point, but they ran the ball over 100 yards. James Cook had 20 something plus carries. Yeah.
Yeah, Randy, I know the weak point, it seems like all year, has been the defensive line, and especially it being evident this week going against James Cook, who is a very phenomenal running back in his own right. But we could not. I mean, we didn't have any kind of answer. Even bringing back Mike Pennell didn't seem to contribute much to the overall slaughter that the Bills' run game did on this D line.
Yeah, it was. It's frustrating to watch. Chris. I'm not going to start with Chris Jones. I'll get to Chris Jones. Cook's a good back, and if I was Buffalo, I would actually give him the ball more. Like, I don't think that they utilize him as much as they could or should, even, because he's got great burst, he's got great balance, he's a physical runner, he can catch the ball out of the backfield, he knows how to find the end zone. He's a good running back. Do I think the Bills' offensive line is fantastic? Not fantastic. They're decent. But our inability to even just do the basic principles of defensive line play, like maintaining your lane, your gap assignment, staying sound, shedding a block, using your hands, like playing low, playing violent. Like, it's like our guys stand up out of their stance, they play patty cake, they look around, they try to jump and sidestep blocks. Like, now I'm going to get into Chris Jones. I am so sick and tired of watching Chris Jones come out of his stance, stand straight up, play patty cake, and watch. Like, he is a shadow of his former self. The man has 5 solo tackles and 2 sacks on the season. That's 9 games. He has finished a play with a tackle 7 times. That's not good enough. For our defensive leader and one of the best defensive linemen in the NFL, it's garbage. Like, how many times have we watched him take plays off and just stand up and watch? Like, how many times does that have to happen for someone to seriously get on this dude's ass and say, pull your head out of your ass, start playing like the defensive player we all know you are and have been and can be, and do it. But he wants to throw some shade and call some people out in post-game press conferences and stuff and saying the other defensive linemen are not playing up to standards or whatnot. Look in the mirror, dude.
To be fair, and Randy, you make some valid points. Chris is not having a great year.
No.
Statistically, if you look at some of the numbers, like even like the PFF grades and stuff, which PFF, take it with a grain of salt, but those grades are pretty bad for him. Overall, it's just not a great year from Chris. Now, there's a couple things you have to immediately factor in I don't have the stats on me, but I know he is near the top, if not the top guy in the league about getting double teamed. That's
Oh, for sure.
that's a huge
Absolutely.
one. And
Yep.
also, it's one of those things like, yeah, there's always been this little criticism throughout his career of taking plays off and not giving 100% effort on every snap and stuff like that. You kind of, you would take those with the good and the bad, just because he would have a half dozen or so, even more, really game wrecking plays previously in his, in previous years. You'd kind of take those loafing plays just because he would have such impactful plays throughout the game. This year, you're not getting that, which is,
No,
is tough.
you're not getting any of that. So there's no excuse. There's nothing to balance out the bad play right now.
Yeah, and I think something that you really have to look at when the defensive, look at the defensive line room. Chris isn't getting younger. We all realize this, and not to say he can't still play at that level, but he's past his prime. And I think you could also look at the rest of the D-line room and say that this is probably one of the worst supporting casts he's had as far as the actual performance of the rest of the D-line. So it's very hard for him to take the whole burden on his shoulders and try to kind of be the hero on that line and play and do everything and contribute, especially when he's getting double teamed so high, because teams know that he's the only real factor that you really have to worry about on the defensive line. And there's other guys around him that have, not taken that step forward, and even have taken a little bit of a step back. And guys like Mike Dana, Charles Omenihu, some of these new guys like Jerry Tillery aren't really doing much. Omar Norman-Lott had a little bit of spunk when he was healthy, but not a whole ton.
Furious George is the only consistent defensive lineman that we have.
George is pretty good. And, George, we've had our criticisms of George Karlaftis as well. And I think he's definitely a decent second guy as an edge rusher, but it's tough when you're relying on him to be your number one edge rusher with no one else necessarily around him. His pressure rate and all that stuff, his numbers look a lot better, obviously, than everyone else on the D-line really in general. But, yeah, it's not a great unit as a whole, and it's tough for a couple, even just George and Chris, to kind of drag the whole unit along with them.
I was excited to have a healthy Omenihu coming into this season, because when he came back last season off his injury, like, he provided a spark. Like, there was some effort, some attitude, some violence to his game. Like, he's been a complete no-show. And Mike Dana is who we all know Mike Dana is. He's a rotational gap player. He's never going to be a dude. Like,
you get him for the run game.
Has shown sparks at time, but as a third round rookie, like, what do you really expect of him? It's a weak room right now. I mean, I was just like the rest of us, happy that Big Mike is back, but Big Mike is what Big Mike is. He's a first and second down run stopping defensive tackle, and that's about what you're going to get at. And yeah, he's older. I mean, mid to late 30s now.
Mid 30s, something like that. Yeah, he's up 30. Yeah,
he's 34.
Yeah, I mean, and Nadi, I'm not even going to go there.
Appreciate all Nadi.
It's disappointing. Is what it is right now with the anticipation that we had, the hopes of having a solid rotation and somebody, some effort guys that could cause some chaos. Like, it just hasn't transitioned into anything.
Yeah, and I see, like, man, again, I have, like, was the biggest Omenihu guy from the minute he's been in Kansas City. I think I've seen more plays where he gets washed out and just doesn't keep his legs under him. I mean, and Garrett, I know you've just been a hater, but, like,
only this year, because he's been not good.
Yeah.
I was also a big Omenihu fan. And then he had to keep posting these hype videos and then show up on Sundays and not do anything. So I don't know.
When you look at this defensive line, you have two starters. You have George Karlaftis, you have Chris Jones. Chris Jones is an above average, starter. At one point, in his career, you'd argue that he was the best, one of the best defensive tackles, top 2, top 3. This year, he hasn't been that guy so far. He's had his moments, right? He's had plays that affect even beyond the stat sheet, but yeah, he's been lost in the sauce sometimes. This defensive line kind of disappears. After that, you have role players. you have guys who would be on benches and on other teams. Um, and yeah, guys that weren't going to make rosters elsewhere. Mike Pennell got cut by the Bengals. Bengals aren't exactly a defensive stalwart. Jerry Tillery has been a journeyman for most of his career. Derek Nottie left, came back, right?
Never
Probably
find
wasn't going
employment
to make
elsewhere.
the
Yeah.
Jets roster, and the Chiefs said, "Hey, we'll bring him back. We want first dibs." I got no hate for Mike Dana, but you want him to be your third or your fourth guy. Same thing with Charles Omenihu. Charles is probably better as a third guy coming off the bench. Gelati needs more reps, and but even him, that's kind of a weird pick because I've shared before, my concerns about him being undersized and having shorter arms, and um, he's been around, but you really only have two quality starters on this defensive line. And so, yeah, that leaves a lot of room to let Chris Jones get double, triple teamed. That means everybody else is getting blocked one-on-one. George sometimes, benefits from that and can win that. But if you're going against but like you said, Buffalo's offensive line, I would put them just a hair above average, right? And they washed him out.
It doesn't really matter who the offensive line
George is
is.
a machine for the Chiefs, right?
Yeah.
No disrespect, but he can't do it on his own, and neither can Chris Jones. And that's where that depth behind him is just not there, and it's so frustrating. That and I get it. They spent a high draft pick on a defensive tackle. They have a former first round defensive end on IR who I think really wouldn't be adding to this conversation anyways. Like there's been some misses here that need to be addressed, and I don't know. When we talked about the trade deadline and all that stuff, like I don't know what the plan is here, especially with that big number from Chris Jones for his contract.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's just kind of think of the plan, obviously. So, like you said, the trade deadline comes and goes. Chiefs stay pat, don't do anything at it. Obviously, a lot of people kind of wanted to see a running back like Breece Hall added. A lot of people also wanted to see D-line help. That's what I definitely wanted to see a lot of. And the Chiefs opted to not do that. There was a couple guys who were definitely active names like Quinnen Williams was traded. Jermaine Johnson was on the block. Jalen Phillips was traded. A guy like Bradley Chubb was the name floated out there for the Chiefs. Ultimately, the Chiefs stand pat with what they have. So what are they banking on for the rest of the year? What is the plan? Obviously, the goal or the gamble that the Chiefs are now taking is the hope that the D-line will figure it out and someone else will step up and kind of figure things out and take that next step to be another contributor. Whether it's Ashton Gelati who gets more snaps as the year goes on, or maybe Charles Omenihu or Mike Dana or someone kind of wakes up. But really, it's not the greatest of outlooks for the defensive line going forward through the rest of the year. And we talk about the Bills' offensive line being kind of mid-grade. It doesn't really matter even who the offensive line is. I mean, we've gone to multiple games this year where the opposing team has backups at multiple positions across the offensive line, and all these different guys that we identified. Like, oh yeah, this should be a gettable game for the D-line. And every week it's the same thing of just going out there and just standing up as the rushes go. And opposing quarterbacks have just so much time. You can't win with having a quarterback just sit there and have, especially against a guy like Josh Allen, where you're just sitting back in the pocket and has all the time in the world. And there's some other deficiencies of the defense as well that kind of got exposed through this game. Obviously, covering tight ends is still a huge problem.
Like our inability to cover tight ends.
Yeah, that's still a huge problem, and it's really more of a personnel matching problem, if anything. I feel like teams now know that the Chiefs are very happy with being in their base personnel and don't want to put a guy like Jaden Hicks on tight ends. They're very comfortable with having Drew Tranquill out there covering tight ends. And unfortunately, Drew is also taking another step back, a pretty significant step back, I would say, this year, and is really not performing very well, especially in the pass coverage game versus some tight ends. Obviously, he had that first touchdown that he gave up that he just tripped on himself. He probably would have been out of position even if he didn't trip on himself. There were a couple other routes and matchups throughout the night that the Bills were definitely exploiting his direction. So that's tough. So that's another big deficiency that's glaring obvious. outside of that, though, I mean, the defensive line is going to be fine. Hopefully, either they are or they're not, and one way or the other, the Chiefs are going to have to roll with it and make up for that deficiency where they can, because there's not any personnel really that you're going to have that's going to change. So you're just hoping that these guys figure it out late in the season. I guess I guess that's what you have to do.
And and Spags is going to just he's going to have to get more creative with his blitz packages. And I think this is another part of this game that still drives me nuts. Like, why do we continually go into this Buffalo game during the regular season with just a vanilla look? Like, as a coach, I understand you don't want to show everybody all your cards in your hand. You don't want to give them all the bells and whistles and do whatever, because if you're expecting to see them later in the year. Okay, but at this point, going into that game at 5-3, like this is not our typical. We can maybe lose this one and still be in good shape, because 5-4 now. Denver 7-2 had leading our division. It was like, you can't screw around anymore. Like, you need to just come out and win football games. You need to come out with a better game plan. You need to be more aggressive, offensively and defensively. Like, you cannot come out in this base vanilla stuff anymore. Mm-hmm. Our schedule doesn't get any easier. So yeah. It's time to take the gloves off. It's time to get creative. It's time to get aggressive. You cannot sit back and just play base and hope that our guys are better than your guys that day, and we have to do something different. So
yeah.
And it's just something we continually see against Buffalo. It's in the regular season, seems like every single year. It's maddening to me.
Yeah, it is frustrating. And in some ways, it's like, well, yeah, that's kind of how it goes. They handle us in the regular season, and then, they really don't show up in the postseason. And I'm not saying it's always going to be that way, right? I think it would be arrogant to assume that. But, it's again, from the team building perspective, I don't know how you expect to do any of the things that you want to do beyond, that with the second level, with the blitzes, all that stuff. If your guys aren't, if your guys aren't at least getting a little bit of extra attention or moving, the offensive line, like, that's where those blitzes get picked up, right? And when you blitz, and especially like Josh Allen is an elite quarterback. If you blitz him, he has the ability to make you pay for it.
He's probably seen every Spags blitz in the book, because
I don't know. I think Spags has got almost as many different blitzes as Andy has offensive.
I should say he's seen every basic ass Spags blitz that he decided to run in this game. So it's not a lot of exotics or anything.
Yeah, and it's like, I'm so it feels like I've been harping this the whole time, and going back to the trade piece, like, the other part that's kind of like, okay, why didn't we do that? And I understand that the money is tight and stuff, but you can make things work. When a guy like Jalen Phillips is available for a 3rd round pick, go get him. And especially don't let the Eagles go get him, but go get him.
Yeah, the Eagles.
Even a guy like I mentioned last week, Joe Tryon, like, he was apparently available. Like,
yeah, he only went for like a 6th or something.
Him and a 7th in return for a 6th. Like, throw that out there. Like,
also, I feel like we need to kill the narrative that teams don't want to trade with the Chiefs and blah blah blah. The teams give the Eagles every single player they ever want. Like, if there's like, come on, like, teams don't care about what the other team is doing. They just are looking out for the best in themselves. Now, you might say that, the Chiefs are a little more conservative. They're not willing to pony up as much picks as the Eagles are. Yeah, that's fair, but still, like, teams give the Eagles whatever they want. When their GM calls, it's like, oh yeah, who do you want? I'll give them to you. Yeah, it's like, it's not a question. So that narrative, I feel like, needs to be killed. Of like, oh, 2 teams don't want to trade the Chiefs. They don't care. If the Chiefs were offering 2 firsts for Sauce Gardner, probably would. Now, they would never do that, but if they did, Jets would still be stupid enough to take that as well. Well, not stupid. It's actually a good move from the Jets, but
or like I said, I mean,
Quinnen Williams.
Again, I know money-wise it would be a really tough one, but Quinnen Williams. You drop Quinnen Williams into this defense right next to Chris Jones, and you change the whole dynamic. you know, not just the dynamic of how teams have to prepare for you, but you change the dynamic of your roster construction for the next 4 or 5 years, because now you have somebody who is at that caliber or near that caliber of player to succeed Chris Jones, and you can take some more swings on the edges and do a lot more with that, right? And then maybe that guy, maybe he becomes the Chris Jones role, and Omar Norman Lott develops, and like long term you've got some guys, right? But yeah, I understand, and I also understand not wanting to give up that much with the needs that this team is going to have. But I know a lot of people were upset about the running back piece, and I'm like, as somebody who loves the run game, right? Randy, I think you're probably with me. We want to go old fashioned smash mouth attitude run game. I can live with Pacheco and Hunt and Smith. I've actually been really, really enjoying Brashard Smith in this offense. So yeah, we'll see how this D line shakes out for the rest of the season. I'm hoping that there will be some guys that hit the streets, and that the Chiefs will be able to add some guys. But yeah,
Christian Wilkins is still out there doing something somewhere, getting a little freaky.
Yeah,
if he's healthy, hey, shoot, call him up, brother. Call him up.
At this point, kick the tires. Like, give him a call. See what he's doing.
As well. Yeah.
He can't be any worse than Derek Nottie.
He can't.
Right?
Nobody can. It's this is just going to be one of those things. I think when we're talking about this team in January and February, it'll be very similar to how we talked about the offensive line last year, and especially specifically the left tackle and left side. How that was such a very glaring issue that we could all see was probably going to be a problem in the biggest moment, and it ended up being a problem in the biggest moment. So that unfortunately might be the trajectory we're on, where we get to the divisional round or AFC championship or something like that, and our lack of pass rush ends up killing us. But we'll see. We'll see. One more point on the defense I want to hit before we go over to the offensive side of the ball. Despite the front seven having a pretty terrible day, there's a little bit interesting looks in the secondary. We saw Noel Williams get his first start of the year, ended up playing a good amount of snaps too as the outside corner, allowing Trent McDuffie to have his season high in snaps in the slot. So that's an ideal situation that maybe bold to pull that out versus the Bills, but it's at least a good look for the future of what the defensive back rotation will look like. Obviously, Noel Williams isn't perfect, but he's showing a lot of good stuff, definitely. And that was obviously the whole plan. Hopefully, the whole offseason was to have another corner outside that you can allow Trent to move inside more and really eat in that aspect. So, anything that you guys saw from Noel or just the secondary as a whole that makes you more optimistic, I should say?
I'm been pleasantly surprised with Nolan, and I know there's been a couple of games this season where he's gotten very little snaps for whatever reason. I have no idea. I mean, right now, he should be a starter from now on. Like, he should be out there.
Yeah.
I mean, Jalen Watson has played well at times, but I'm like, the young guy, there's something about him that just kind of gets you excited. The way he plays, he's physical, he's got the ability, and he's got a nose for the ball. I would just like to see him get his legit shot to really go out there and solidify himself. I mean, we all know what Trent is, and our safety play for some odd reason is seeing less and less Jaden Hicks and more Shamari Connor. For what reasons, I'm not exactly 100% sure. But I mean, if I was to pick a part of our defense that is probably the most solid, it's our DBs right now. So, and they're going to continue to get tested because we can't get a pass rush, so they're going to have to cover a little bit longer. And something else during this game that made no sense to me is why are we playing so much zone?
Yeah, that was a big problem. Yeah,
they ate up the zone.
They don't have a single guy on that team other than Shakir that could take the top off or get by us to cause problems. I was just sitting there, just shaking my head the whole time. Like, why are we in zone? Like, man
We're
up,
not a zone
bring some,
defense.
bring some
Yeah.
pressure. Like, that's not Spags' MO. Like, it is press man, get in your face, throw some crazy shit at you that you're not ready for, and cause some chaos. Like, there was no reason for us to sit back and just let those guys work across the middle like that. And it's just, I'm just absolutely baffled still by that. And there's been a couple of games this year where we've played just a weirdly large amount of zone, and I'm just like, why are we doing this? This is not what we do. Like, and it's not working.
Yeah, that's the worst part. Is it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
So just, I mean, get back to doing what we do best. Like, get in your face, press, blitz, cause some chaos, get some turnovers. But like sitting back in zone and just waiting for our inept defensive line to try to get pressure while people can get open in zone, like that's not a recipe for success for us right now at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think it's like it's a credit to the secondary that they've performed so well. But even some of those plays, in that game, and again, Josh Allen is a really good quarterback, but he got to extend things and move things around a lot more than what I wanted him to be able to do. So, I some of that I think you just gotta you. It's hard to evaluate it just from the player perspective because they've had to do a little bit more than they should have. So like them holding up as well as they have, I think is impressive.
Yeah. As always, just seems like you gotta the defense specifically is gonna take the regular season to kind of iron out whatever they can and hopefully come out with the best version of themselves in the playoffs if we make it there, of course, which is still not a complete certain. So we just have to always consider that. But usually it seems like when we get to the playoffs that guys kind of start figuring out, Spag starts figuring out what this best scheme, what the best personnel, all that stuff is. But right now it's just not looking super optimistic. Let's flip to the other side of the ball, which was also bad, but for different reasons, and I think for more fixable reasons that we're going to talk about. That maybe just is a little bit more optimistic of an outlook for how the offense will continue to look throughout the rest of the year. Obviously, big story of this game for the offense. Pass game could not really get going at all, mostly because of the pass protection seemed to be definitely probably the worst that we've seen this year for certain. Still missing Josh Simmons. Joan Moore, in his third or fourth game filling in now, has started to kind of deteriorate a little bit from that initial maybe honeymoon phase that we had of him initially starting. So that's was a problem. Trey Smith definitely still didn't look super healthy out there after having that back injury. So that's stuff that we're getting Josh Simmons back after the bye. Also have the bye week to have Trey Smith and a couple of those other guys get a little bit healthier. Juwan Taylor also exited that game fairly late with an injury as well. So we saw some Wanya Morris snaps, which is when you're seeing Wanya Morris snaps, you're in for a bad time. So that's that side of the offense I feel like is a little fixable, right? You get some pieces back and healthy, and there's a decent chance that the pass protection looks as good as it was for a couple of the games. For a lot of the early half of this year has looked, where Pat's had a lot more time. He's been a lot more comfortable back there on some of those longer developing plays, which Pat is also not without blame a little bit. He definitely had a little bit more happy feet this game. Definitely escaped the pocket a little bit quicker than he might have needed to, abandon some decent pockets just because, and we've seen this with Pat, like when he's not very comfortable and confident in his offensive line, this type of thing starts to happen. And it's not necessarily, if you evaluate it on a case-by-case basis and you look at one snap, it's like, oh, why did he escape the pocket from this snap when it was pretty clean? It was probably because the couple snaps before there was a very similar look that they got beat on, and he's just a little gun shy on it now. That's just kind of, that happens in the flow of the game when you're dropping back and you immediately see some odd movement and whatnot, and you kind of assume the worst. So that part of the offense, I feel like is going to be fixable though. And then the other parts that I think really hindered the Chiefs' offense this game. The run game, as we always say, got abandoned once again. And not only that, but obviously the most successful parts of the run game, which were the under center runs that we've seen the past couple weeks, those were hitting pretty good the past few weeks. And even the couple times that we did in this game, doing pretty good. They were pretty good. And then, Andy said, all right, lock that side of the playbook back up. We ain't calling any more under center runs. And and then that was kind of all she wrote for the run game. So those two things, I feel like between getting offensive line healthy again and maybe just figuring out what plays to call again are fixable, in my opinion. So I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I wasn't as pessimistic about the offense's performances, but it just definitely seemed, very familiar. It's the performance that we've seen many times where it's like, hey, I feel like you should have maybe evolved from this and maybe figured out that this type of stuff didn't work. You have a lot of evidence that stuff doesn't work, as indicated by the early season losses and whatnot. So now we're kind of back to that, which is a little crazy. It's a little crazy. I don't know about that. So yeah, that's kind of how the offense went in my eyes.
I know it's just another one of those that frustration with the game plan again. So just like we talked about the vanilla defensive game plan, like you can run the football against Buffalo. It's been like everyone else has done it, and like when we actually like ran the football, like I don't care if it's just 4 yards or 6 yards. I mean, like as an O-line coach and a former running back, like I will take 4 to 6 yards a pop every single time because you move the chains. Is it the most exciting thing in the world? No. But it gives you opportunities to open up your playbook when you actually run the football and guys aren't constantly pinning their ears back, pass rushing you the entire time. Like play action starts to work. Get creative. And when is Andy Reid and Matt Nagy going to figure out that our running backs are not suited for shotgun run sidecar game? Like
very bad at it.
They are brilliant. Andy Reid is a brilliant football coach, but it's like, why can't he figure out that the running backs that we have on our roster right now are downhill, one cut, get upfield and vertical, physical runners? Like that's how they're built. They have, Kareem has great vision. He's quick in small spaces. Pacheco's explosive. He's got to get downhill because his vision sucks. At least get him going downhill. He's going to fall forward for 3 to 4 yards. Fine. Yeah. But like our run game is just absolutely baffling to me, and it has been for years. And that's probably another reason why a lot of guys are saying why would we want to trade for Breece Hall, give up any kind of draft capital because we don't run the ball.
Yeah, it's valid.
I mean, it's a fair argument, but it's like Breece Hall is like all of our running backs put into one guy.
Yeah,
he's got the vision and the shake of Kareem, and the contact balance. He's got explosive speed like Pacheco does, and he can catch the ball like Smith. Like, or probably not like Smith, but he's a good receiver. Like, we need to figure out a way to like consistently run the football that will allow us to like do some other things, because it was just so vanilla again. Like it was a couple cool little things, putting Rasheed back there running Wildcat, scoring the touchdown, and like it's been awesome to have Rasheed Rice back. But also, as I say that, it seems like Pat is focusing exclusively on Rasheed right now, and he missed some wide open dudes. He missed Travis, and he missed Juju, and he missed Worthy on a few spots to where they were wide open because he was so fixated on having his new toy back. Which Rasheed Rice is a fun toy to have. I get it. Dude can do a lot of things, and to have him back makes our offense more explosive and more diverse. You can do more things, but like then do those things. Like don't get so fixated and open up the playbook a little bit, and don't get so just freaking predictable. Like saying Andy Reid, like. He has so many things in that playbook. Use them. Like it's the frustrating game plan of just coming in, limping into it, going, I don't want to show everything. Shut up and win the game. Like just go out there, call the plays, put points on the board, and I hate to sound like the whole Debbie Downer, like the sky is falling. I mean, we're 5-4. Yes, we're still in a decent spot. Like we didn't get blown out. We lost another 1-score game. Like, these are the things that were happening last year for us, to where we were winning 1-score games. Now, just for some odd reason, we're not getting that break. We're not making that one play. We're not getting to the one spot we need to get that win. So last year's 15 or whatever one-loss record could have been 6 or 7 had the coin toss, go the other way. Like, so right now we're not getting those breaks, and we feel like the world is coming to an end. Like, we're still in every single game, but like, we can't get out of our own way. And that's the most frustrating part. Like, we have great coaches, we have good players. Let them do the things. Open it up. Stop hamstringing ourselves and just coming in vanilla with a half-ass game plan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Predictable is a good way to describe it. As good as the offense, you can have as good as offense as possible, but if you're predictable, it doesn't really matter, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot left on the field, right? I know that there was at least one instance where I was like, Travis was wide open in the end zone coming across, but we were looking elsewhere. And the other part about this is like, I don't feel as bad about the offense because it was close. It was a competitive game, and even at the end, gosh, if Tyquan Thornton would have came down with that one pass, they would have built a statue for him before that plane landed. We would have had it just boop, there he is.
Right?
But that was a tough one. Yeah, I feel I'll also feel a lot better with Josh Simmons back in because one of the things that people have probably noticed um, is I think this is not disrespect to Jalen Moore because I think Jalen Moore has done a really good job for the situation he's been in. But one of the things that Josh Simmons is so good at is getting out in space, and I think it's going to bring back some of that screen game. I think they tried to do some of that early on, and they were just getting beat to the edges out there. I think Josh Simmons makes that a different looking game in terms of being able to do some of those screens and quick passes and things. It looked like because I was looking at the pass chart and they definitely gave up on some of that pretty early on because they were just getting sniffed out and blown up. So um, I think that's the part that has me most excited about Josh Simmons being back. Very glad that he's going to be back. And I think it'll make a difference in the long term. But yeah, getting creative, not and like I think what Randy said in the beginning, like this is a game you need to win for not just because it's the Bills, but because it's a standing issue. Is it possible that the Chiefs still find their way forward and all that stuff? Yeah, and it helps getting to play getting to play the Broncos, but they're going to have to pretty much. I mean, they're going to have to be flawless in their division to have a chance. And right now, I know Buffalo is. I'm trying to remember. New England won, so I think Buffalo is still second place in their division. The biggest issue is the Chiefs are losing some of these games that are key tiebreaker games. That where they're if they don't win the division and then they're trying to get into the playoffs, this is going to stink. So that's I would have liked to see a little bit more urgency, a little bit more creativity with that. So I just but trying to be optimistic with Simmons coming back, opening up the offense a little bit more, getting some of those screens and outside plays moving, and
That will help. Yeah, that'll definitely help. I mean, if you look at the most successful Chiefs offenses, it all starts with the trenches. It all starts with the offensive line play being good, and that's what inevitably elevates everyone else to kind of be more comfortable and confident, and just you can do a lot more when you have a really good, healthy offensive line around you. Randy mentioned a good point about how Rasheed has kind of become the only focal point of the offense. And it's, like I said, Rasheed is phenomenal, and I would pass the ball to Rasheed every time if I had him as well. It makes sense, but the disappearance of some of the other guys, Xavier Worthy, for example, is just not getting much of anything. And there's been a pretty big criticism of how they're using him. He's really only on a go route guy and a couple other random things. They're really not giving him a lot of routes that utilize his skill sets a lot. Now, I will say he's probably still not 100% healthy. Playing with a shoulder injury like that, where he's not only he missed multiple weeks because of it, but he's also got it banged up a couple times. And it's just a little bit of a caution, I bet, with when he's out there. You're not necessarily going to be giving it 100% just because you don't feel 100%. So I completely understand that. They're still not really putting him in very good positions and utilizing his full skill set to the way that I think we all kind of envisioned when we talked about the Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy kind of pairing of what those two can kind of complement off of each other, along with Hollywood and stuff like that. Which Hollywood also, that's another point. Hollywood's not. They're giving Hollywood routes that I think other people should be given, and they're giving him looks that other people should be getting. I think you're not using Hollywood necessarily how I think you should be. I feel like he should be more of like an underneath kind of guy who relying more on yard after catch stuff on. I don't know. That usage has been weird. Tyquan Thornton has absolutely disappeared from this offense, which is really unfortunate because, and I get it. Like, we didn't have Rasheed and Xavier Worthy for some of those games, so that was kind of your main option. But like, he was the one guy that had a good deep ball connection with Mahomes. You were getting him onto these deeper, to intermediate to deep routes where it's like he was finding space in the defenses and making really big plays and stuff like that. Taking deep shots to him was pretty successful. And now that Rasheed and Xavier Worthy are back, there's nothing. There's just absolutely nothing his way. Which is really tough because that's just another, once again, it's just predictability thing. If the defense knows, if we know, that's what we should say. If we know that the ball is going to go to Rashee Rice every time, the defense probably certainly knows. Like, they understand the game plan is now it's Rashee or nothing, and maybe a little bit of Travis and maybe a little bit of some other guys, but it's like it's just not the spread that we necessarily thought and expected that we'd see once we have all of our receivers healthy and whatnot. It just kind of seems like it's almost just like too many knives in the cupboard, if you will. It's like you just have too much stuff. You don't really know exactly what to do with it. So you're kind of, you're giving Xavier Worthy the Marquez Valdez Scantling routes, and you're giving Tyquan like the old, DeMarcus Robinson treatment and all this stuff. It's like you have, these guys are not the receivers of old. You can actually do a lot more with these guys, and they have a lot broader skill set that you can utilize, and you're not just pigeonholed into the one or two skill sets that our old wide receivers, individually had. Like, you have so much more creativity that you could be using, and obviously we know that Andy doesn't like to empty his playbook and whatnot, especially against people he's going to see again. But you got to do something more, right? You have to use your guys a little bit more to kind of take the pressure off of Rasheed and get the defenses thinking again, because there's not a lot of thinking. I think the defenses, between not running the ball and then only throwing it to one guy, particularly, like, it's pretty easy to calculate what the Chiefs offense is going to do and how you kind of defend against them, So that's the unfortunate part of what the offense has developed into, is that we're not really seeing a lot of ball distribution and letting these guys kind of eat, as the motto has been. The motto was everybody got to eat, and nobody's really eating now.
Right. I mean, that is, maybe one of the drawbacks of having so many options right now is like, but it should also allow you to play freely. Like, somebody's got to be open. There's got to be a different combination of things that we can do. Like, it's nice to have Rasheed back, but yeah, he's become a little bit too much of the focal point. How many balls did Tyquan get thrown to him? 2. The deep ball in the end zone there, and which he had a shot to come down with it, but it's gotta all come together again. Like, we've seen flashes of it. Like, granted, it was against the Raiders, and the Raiders are terrible, and I get that, but those types of things can happen because Buffalo's defense was not fantastic, and we were talking, listening to your guys' last broadcast that I wasn't part of. It was like you made a lot of really good points. Like, Cole Bishop, we should have been able to pick on that guy. He looked like an all-pro in that game. Like, that dude came to play. I don't know if he was listening to the podcast and he was pissed off about what you guys had to say. But that dude played out of his mind. Like, their secondary played well. I mean, so was it just a perfect storm of like our vanilla ass game plan and them stepping up to the plate? Maybe it's kind of what it's looking like. But like, we have to seriously regroup, and I think this bye week comes at a pretty critical point. Like, okay, we did not play our best game against Buffalo. We have a week and a half to get shit figured out. Like, some guys got to get healthy. Simmons has got to get back on track. We need to come out against Denver like guns blazing. Like, it's time to take the gloves off. It's time to ball out, and you can't leave anything on the table anymore. So coming into this game with Denver, like, this is a must win in the division, and it's we're usually pretty good coming off bye, but it's like it's time to stop screwing around.
Guys got to stop screwing around. That's the biggest thing, Tom. I know it's just the you got to figure out the balance on offense. I believe, and as Randy was talking, I just remembered that I believe there was a third down call in which the offensive pass catchers on the field were, I believe, Rashee Rice, Juju, Noah Gray, Travis Kelce, and maybe Rashard Smith or something or maybe Robert Tonyan even was one of those options. And no disrespect to those guys, but it just feels like you need better personnel on the field at the same time. And on that play, I'm pretty sure the look was Rasheed, and I think the defense knew that the look was Rasheed because he was the only.
Why is that a package of players to even have on the field?
That's a strange package. There are some packages where it's like, wow, this is who we decided on with all these bodies. This is who we're deciding to roll out on these critical downs and drives. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. I understand you want to get your rotations in, and you want to get guys their snaps and the different looks, but yeah, I agree. Like I love watching Rasheed make plays, but part of opening things up for him is letting other guys make plays, right? So yeah, it's like I said, and we talked about this even going into the Bills game. Like, how much do they really put off? How much do they really, set aside for, the playoffs and down the road? But it was definitely disappointing at the end of the day. The combination of kind of over reliance on Rasheed, not really sticking to the run game, even though Kareem had some good runs, and just feels, and it happens a lot with this offense when things kind of go wonky, as it just feels like there was a lot of forced looks. And I say all that and saying like, hey, they even had a shot there at the end, Mm-hmm. I think that's the reality. Like, they were moving the ball, but you don't want to be in that situation to begin with. You want to, have a comfortable lead going into the fourth, whatever that's like. Well, I guess we had it a couple weeks ago when we played the Raiders, but beyond that, these games are stressful, man. That's the other part. Like, I just wish one time we would be on the other side of that, where it's like, all right, big Bills game in the middle of the season. We're just gonna go take care of business.
No, yeah, that is a big dream for sure. But I don't know. It just seems like sometimes the Chiefs are a little content with winning by the skin of their teeth, and when you're content with that, then you end up sometimes getting the other side of that coin. And so yeah, overall offense not as necessarily pessimistic you might think as you might think of the defensive side, but still just need to get more things figured out. That's why trade deadline comes and goes, and I wasn't super sad that we didn't trade for a running back like Breece Hall. Because I know it's great. Like, watching great running backs is great. Don't get me wrong. Like, watching Bijan Robinson right now for Atlanta and some of these other guys like James Cook, for example, like some of these, it's so fun to watch good running backs. We all remember it with Jamal. Like, it's fun to watch a good running back play well. But really,
wouldn't it just still be kind of crazy to have Jonathan Taylor on this team like he should be?
If Kyle was here, he would blow a gasket because he said that.
That's why I felt free to say.
Jonathan Taylor is looking pretty fun.
By that.
Hey, two members of that draft class did suit up this week. You had Jonathan Taylor on one team and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Clyde Edwards-Helaire did suit up instead of Elijah Mitchell. They said, you know what, Clyde, he's typically the Bills killer. We think he's going to fit more in the game plan, so we're going to have him active over Elijah Mitchell. They had like 2 carries for -0, -2 yards, -5 yards, maybe. I don't know. It was shout out Clyde. I like Clyde as a person, but I don't understand how he's still getting snaps in 2025. That's just a little wild one. But overall, I just feel like the problem isn't the running backs; it's the run game, right?
Yes.
Pacheco and Kareem and Rashard Smith, I think, are going to be a fine rotation for the rest of the year if you just figure out how to actually run the ball correctly, and that starts with under center, play action stuff, actually having a run game, actually making defenses fear the run game and anticipate that you guys are going to run the ball so you can open up the passing game and blah, blah, blah. This is basic football 101. Everyone knows what needs to be done. So we're just going to see. We're going to see how they look after the bye. It's going to be a good time for everyone to get healthy and get right and get Josh Simmons back integrated into this, get some other guys. Get Pacheco healthy again, get Kareem a little bit healthier. So everyone needs to get healthy and come out strong versus this Broncos team, which is, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about the Broncos team. They're 7-2. They don't look good for 3 quarters, and then they look really good in the fourth quarter. And And that's, something that the Chiefs are going to have to deal with. So we're going to talk a lot more about that matchup and everything next week. We're probably going to take a little bit of a bye week break. We'll probably won't get back to you with another episode until later next week to anticipate this Broncos game. But yeah, for now, Chiefs Kingdom, we appreciate you rocking with us tonight, and definitely enjoy this bye. Enjoy a little bit of recovery time for everybody, and just kind of getting your heads right, getting prepared for another half of the Chiefs season that it might continue to look some fun and sometimes, and might be a little infuriating in other times. And we're just gonna have to live with it. The good, the bad, and the ugly. We're gonna have to figure it out and keep on rolling. And there's still a good chance that this team is playing football in February. So we always have to remember that there's after everything, it is still the Chiefs. The Chiefs is still the Chiefs, and we still have Pat and Andy Reid and a lot of guys who are very comfortable and confident in the playoffs and the postseason. So we just got to get there, even if it's the 7th seed and we're getting in at 10-7 or 11-6 or something ridiculous. Like, it's just got to do what you got to do. Just got to get in the dance, and then it's anyone's game from there. So it might look a little ugly during the regular season. Chiefs fans are very familiar with that. So should just we thought we might break that. We might get some prettier games and less stress and during these games, but that is not the case. So we'll do with what we can. So with that, that's everything we've got for you tonight. We appreciate you all rocking with us. Be sure to check us out at Kingdom Says Pod, Facebook, X, and Instagram. Check us out, Kingdom Says, over at YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcasts at. We'll be on there. And like I said, enjoy the bye week. Enjoy watching other teams play football this weekend, and everything else. That there's no other sports. World Series is over, NASCAR is over. Like, there's NBA, I guess, is a thing, but who really cares about
That's
that?
not a thing. No one wants to watch that.
Yeah, I don't really care about that. So it's just football. So take a week to really refine your fantasy teams. If you have 6-7 Chiefs players on your team, definitely you're gonna have to swap some guys out. It's a bye week, so you're gonna have to find some other guys to contribute for you. But should be good. November is here, and we're gonna have to actually care about some meaningful November football this year, and December football as well. So that's on the horizon. So appreciate everyone for rocking with us once again. Be sure to check us out on all those platforms, and have a great rest of your night or day or whatever time zone you're at. And we will see you guys on the next episode of The Kingdom Says.